Howdy folks, Tex here. Welcome to Southern Belle Bigfoot. Let me introduce y'all to a great friend of mine, Selena.
Hey y'all, I'm Selena. I started this channel because I had my own encounter, and I know what it's like to be ridiculed and unable to share my experiences. I want to give everyone a safe haven to share their encounters with these magnificent beings. I love to hear yours as well. Please email them to me at cwlenagarrett@gmail.com. And if you'd like to support me in my journey to the truth, my Cash App is $Selena Bigfoot, and I look forward to hearing from you.
Hello, everybody.
Hi, Mr. Tex. How's it going?
Good. Just come back from a little camping trip. I think it paid off. So
Okay. Well, I'm
yeah.
excited to hear about it. When do I get to hear about your experiences?
Well, you may get to hear it a little earlier than others, but we're looking at a couple of weeks. We're gonna hopefully have the footage that we came back with and some other stuff, and because it's going to be, we're going to have a show with the property owner. Ulerson, he'll be on, and Nick will be on, and probably Monica, maybe Pops. So we'll have several that were out there because, and you know, there was some stuff that happened and we caught some footage of it. So we'll see how it goes.
Well, I seen Riley, Ron, Flat Rock, Sharon, Mickey G, Pops, Denise. It goes on in here. And Gary and y'all just, Roger Blair, y'all know how much y'all mean to me. Sandra Piper. So I just wanted to say a quick hello to my Sharons. I have two Sharons. Anyways, and so Flat Rock, thank you so much for joining us. It means a lot to me. Y'all know that. And anyways, but we have a guest by the name of Ashley Mcphaul. Now, I want to make sure I pronounce that right. So bring Ashley up and let him tell me if I'm correct, if I'm saying his name correctly.
Drum roll, please. There he is, right there.
Hello.
Did I pronounce it right?
Said that just fine. Ashley Mcphaul.
He is an author, and I wanted, and I tell anybody that contacts me or I contact them to be on this show, I tell them, don't tell me anything. I want to hear it when y'all hear it. So, hey, Sassy, I always I want to be kind of what you call surprised, when I hear it for the first time. So I always tell them, don't tell me until the day of the show with everybody else. So that's why I'm excited about hearing, from Ashley and the rest of my guests that I have lined up to come on in the next couple months. I'm very excited about every one of them. So Ashley, how in the world did you get into knowing about these creatures, and when did you have your first experience or encounter?
That's a good question. Actually, my mom was kind of an enthusiast, a closet enthusiast. She actually watched Legend of Boggy Creek on the movie theater in California right before I was born, to be honest with you. And was a huge fan of it. And me growing up, she had some books and I used to read them when I was young, and basically just started collecting stories. I thought Bigfoot was something that was just in California or Washington State or Oregon. I had no idea there's more than just one of them, and you'd be surprised how many people today still kind of feel that way.
They do. I've heard that before.
Yeah. Like, how does he travel so much? No, it's not just one,
Right.
And
I had a conversation just like that at work 4 days ago.
Right. I just had one the other day, and they're like, hey, it's just one. I'm like, he travels that? No. But
well, it depends on who you ask. If some people think they're going through portholes and stuff, and if that's what they're doing, it's possible.
Well, if there's any Louis L'Amour books, people that are Louis L'Amour fans, I mean, that's kind of what he believed Louis L'Amour did. I can't wrap my brain around that. I'm not that smart. I can't fathom that. But anyway, started collecting stories. A lot of people down south where I'm from started having stories. I've got stories that go back 100 years in the same area, and then have other stories 100 years later in the same area. And there's got to be something to that. When you have 2 or 3 people living within 15 miles of each other and haven't talked to each other, but yet they have the same encounter and describe it the same way. You know, it's like I said in my book, I said, you know, you can take 100 Bigfoot encounters, 100 of them that people saw or had experiences, throw half of them out, just throw half of them out for mistaken identity, or, you know, just some people just flat up lie to you, period.
Right.
And, but what about the other 50%? I mean, what is the statistical odds that all 100% would be mistaken identity or lies? I mean, it's impossible.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's the same. It's the same principle as, you know. So you're telling me that if we're just talking about the lower 48 here, we're not talking about anything else. That's a big if here. But you're telling me that every tribe of the American Indians have a name for this thing and describe a different relationship with these things. And half of them didn't even speak to each other.
That's right.
They couldn't. But they came up with the same critter.
The Creek Indians back home called it the man-eating ogre.
Mm.
You know, that was their name for it. I can't remember the Indian name off the top of my head, but that was the translation. Yeah. So, you know, I totally agree with you. I mean, there's got to be something there. So, you know, it started out, I was given a hunting report, you know, deer, turkey on the radio. And nobody knew anything about the Bigfoot stuff that I had personally experienced or anything else. I was just given a hunting report on the radio every Wednesday morning. And then somebody saw one cross the road close to the Sepulga River there in Connecticut County, Alabama. And they called into the show, started talking about it. And then I was like, you know, I have a lot of stories myself. And I started talking about it. Then other people started calling in and telling their stories. And it just exploded to where Evergreen, Alabama is now the Bigfoot capital of Alabama.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen that documentary.
Let me ask you something real quick before we just jump waist deep into your stuff here. There's a Bigfoot conference coming up in a few weeks in Alabama. Did you know about it?
I think I saw something about it on Facebook. I've been asked to go to a couple of conferences, but I hadn't been able to make it. I don't remember if this is one of those conferences or not. There was a conference coming up pretty quick, but I'm working in northern Minnesota. I'm actually in Minnesota right now.
Oh, okay.
So, and I remember somebody inviting me, and I remember looking at the dates and saw that I would be up here. Yeah. So I couldn't make it.
Man, I'm sorry that you're going to miss that one. I was hoping to meet you.
Yes, sir. I'd love to meet you anytime. You know, I'll be happy to take you to some of the places in my book and show you some of the sites that we had. And, you know, one of the things that really helped me realize that the book had some kind of merit to it is I got a call, and this is very interesting to me, probably about a year ago, from a guy in North Carolina. And he's a big hunter, big black bear hunter. You can look at his Facebook page, and you know, said he read my book and he really loved it. And thank you for writing the book. And he had an experience in Lower Alabama years ago. And this just kept, you know, this book kind of helped validate his experience. And he said, you know, if you want to hear about it, I'll tell you. And I said, well, yeah, absolutely. And started talking to him. And he said, man, I was hunting somewhere in Lower Alabama. And he couldn't remember because he's with his uncle. And he was hunting up on this tripod stand on the edge of this clear cut on the edge of a big old beaver pond. and said right at dark he started smelling something. Said it was god awful. He thought somebody had wounded a deer, maybe let the deer lay in there.
Yeah.
He said it was bad, and he said it was cold. He said it was so cold you couldn't hardly stand it out there. And I remember that day in the 90s. This was back in the 90s. And said he finally got down. He heard something moving, though, before he got down, like huge, moving through the swamp. And he's like, what is that? That's got to be a buck. He said, but no, a buck ain't going to make that kind of noise. Said it was like it was purposely making noise.
Right.
When he got down out of the stand, that thing come out of the swamp and come after him. Like he took off running. This thing come right after him running, kind of trailed him at a certain distance. He had to turn left in the woods down this old logging road, and he had his flashlight. And when he did, he shined his light in between those pine trees, and there it was, less than 10 feet away, staring at him. He froze. He said it was reddish brown hair. It just kind of kept moving back and forth behind the tree. He said he about lost control of his bowels.
Yep, it's understandable.
I hear that a lot. Don't you
Yeah.
text? I hear that a lot.
And he hauled butt. He said, shoot
Uh-oh.
somebody. There we go. So he said, shooting it never crossed my mind. He said that thing was too big, too scary. He said people made fun of him when he told him about it. He actually underwent my psychiatric treatment for it.
Oh, wow.
Said he didn't hunt for a long time after that.
Mm-hmm.
And his uncle was going through Evergreen, Alabama, saw the statue of the Bigfoot out there, found out about my book and read the book. And he's like, man, this just validates everything that I saw.
Well, Ashley, I have to say this. I have to interrupt to tell you this,
Sure.
Ashley. And Tex, is it not funny that, not funny as in laughter, I'm talking about strange, that people absolutely have to seek treatment and therapy after seeing something so frightening to them, something that can put them in such a state of shock that, and yet they're going to lie about it. Do you know what I'm saying? I'm going to go pay a therapy bill and I'm going to lie about it.
And here's the thing about it. So I'm talking to him. I said, well, you need to call your cousin and find out where you were. Come to find out, he was in Burnt Corn, Alabama, which half my book is about. And he was less than 3 miles from where all my experiences and where I hunted at. I was like, you got to be kidding me. I knew the exact stand he was on because I used to hunt in that dang hunting club.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I'm like, man, I said, you ain't going to believe this, but you were less than 3 miles from where I was, and I hunted in that hunting club you were in. I know the stand you were on, and half the book was less than 3 or 4 miles from there. The boy almost broke down and started crying.
Yeah, it's just one more validation, isn't it? When you hear that, you know, it was so close. Our most recent was Rainbow Drive, which is Gadsden, Alabama. And then what is the name of that road? Turkeytown Highway, which is heading towards Center. And then, of course, the one I sang in Piedmont, and then the small gray one beside it. But I had so many around me, I didn't even know. I didn't know till I got home and looked at the pictures that there were so many more than 2. I just seen the big one and the little one standing together, but I didn't know that I had so many surrounding me. So, y'all, I'm telling you, there's a lot more than people think there is.
Well, one thing the GCBRO has always told me, and I believe them firmly, there's never just one.
Yep.
Don't worry about the one you see. You better worry about the one you don't see.
That's right.
And I firmly believe that. I had a buddy hunt on my place last year. He's 6'6", 350 pounds. He's a big man. And I was working in Illinois, and he knew all the lore up there. He knew everything that we had happen. And he called me one evening. I was in a restaurant, and he called me crying, cussing, hollering, screaming. And I couldn't understand a word he said. I honestly thought that he done caught his wife cheating on him with another man. I'm going to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And I told him, I said, buddy, I said, go on to the house, drink your beer, relax. I'll call you when I get out of here. I called him. His wife answered the phone, said he took a nerve pill and went to bed. He called me the next morning. He had two of them come out. One of them crossed the road, and by the time he's like, oh, my God, what did I just see? And he's following it, circling him, kind of behind his stand. Another one crossed the road and come up to the edge of the food patch. And this thing was trying to get behind him, so he shot at it through the woods and took off running. And this is what bothers me, and this is what people need to understand. Even though he shot at that thing, these two creatures ran after him all the way to his truck. They respected the gun, but they were not scared of the gun.
Right.
And they crashed trees and hollered all the way to his truck. He shot off a couple more rounds when he got to his truck. And when he got to the highway, that's when he called me.
You know,
and he won't go back. He ain't been back, said he ain't going back. He's done.
You know, the thing about it is, and I hear so many, and that breaks my heart. I mean, when people, I'll never go camping again. I'll never go hunting again or whatever. But if he had, they probably wouldn't have bothered him if he hadn't shot at him.
No, you know what? And I don't blame him, because that one was circling behind him while he was looking at the other one. So I get what he was doing.
Oh yeah, I understand it,
but he was putting rice bran out there on that field, and they've been eating that rice bran.
Mm-hmm.
And they were coming up there to get a meal. They didn't want him in there. In my opinion, I agree with you. They just wanted him out of there.
Yeah.
If he would have just left and just gone, they probably wouldn't have even followed him.
Right.
But he was so scared and terrified that they were going to get behind him and kind of trap him. I mean, he lost several nights of sleep over that. He won't go back up there to my place.
Well, actually, I ask everybody every time that I have a guest on. I ask them what their opinion is on the hunters that say, I've been hunting 35 and 40 years and never seen anything. That's what I always end my show asking my guest. So.
Well, what I tell everybody is, and I don't blame anybody for not believing. I don't blame it. It defies the odds. I don't blame anybody for not believing, but it don't take but one experience till you're 100% believer.
That's right. One time.
There ain't no middle road with this. You know, when you have an experience, you know.
That's right. And you don't ever forget it. It stays with you. It don't matter what if a day goes by and you're like, hadn't thought of it yet, and you're like, I done good today. Well, later on that night, you'll sit and look at the woods and think, wonder what's in those woods. You know, right. You can't help it. You will always see and envision, or I do, what I seen. And mine was in Piedmont, Alabama. So you said that you was from Alabama. So you know where Piedmont, Alabama is?
I do. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. There is a highway called 278 Highway. And it's a real popular highway because you get to Georgia and all through that one highway. Anyways, it's on its way to Georgia. There's also been some seen in Esom Hill right after Piedmont, right as you go into Georgia, you know, on 278 Highway, which is very strange to me because it's like them people don't even know that I had a sighting August 7th, 24, you know, and yet they're seeing the same highway, you know, near the same area. So it just surprises me. These things must be traveling and breeding like crazy to be spreading out the way they are traveling.
I agree with you. And here's the thing I noticed in my little town. So that's what makes, you know, to me, the book is kind of like, you know, Falk, Arkansas, where you had a bunch of encounters within 30 or 40 miles of each other. But here's one thing that I noticed is somebody will have a sighting in a certain place on a certain road in 1970 and then have another one in 2020. A different person, but same road, same everything. I really think they kind of keep to their same haunts, if that makes sense. They kind of keep to the same trails. You know, it's kind of passed down, because I literally, one guy's mama, and this guy's in his 70s, had one walk out in front of him on a dirt road back in the early 1900s. And several people have seen one in the same dirt road back in the 2020s. So that tells me that they kind of travel the same way, you know, over years.
They
Yeah, I
fill
think
places out. It's like they have to fill a place out, and then if that one don't have too much traffic at all, they'll stay there for a little while and then move on. You know what
I
I
think
mean?
I think they have a territory no different than a big cat, and they move through this territory. Now you got to remember, a big cougar will have a territory 350 square miles.
Sure, sure.
So you can just imagine these critters may have a bigger territory. We don't know, and I think they move through this territory so they don't use up the game and the resources in that one territory. And I think that's probably why you have these clusters of sightings in a few months, and here, and then you'll have them over here, and then you'll have them over here.
And then 100 years later, they'll be right back where they started.
Yeah, because they're a family group. I don't know how long they live. A lot of people claim they do. I don't.
No.
I would imagine they live as long, if not longer than us. But I would think that it's generational.
Well, if there's one thing I've learned about this, being in this, is number one, there's a lot of crazy people out there.
Oh, absolutely.
But number two, if anybody tells you're an expert, they're an expert on these things, they're full of it.
Yeah, yeah.
Go on somewhere else, turn them off.
Yeah.
They're not. There are no experts on this stuff. Now, I've got friends that supposedly have cohabitated with them for a while, and they tell me stuff, and I think it's pretty legitimate because they tell me things that most normal people wouldn't know, such as apparently they have a taste for sulfur. I talked with an old man that was back in the 60s where I come to, where a young one came and took a matchbox out of his pocket and ate the whole box in the matches. Well, those were sulfur tip matches.
Wow.
And then I talked with a guy out of Montana, a friend of mine that, got one that comes by pretty regularly. And he says the damn thing seems to love sulfur.
Well, so, they could be doing that for bug repellent.
They could be. So, but little stuff like that kind of tells me, okay, that guy may really have these experiences, because I always look at everything as they're full of crap until I can piece it together.
And that would explain a lot with the body odor too.
It would, but
this old man,
he protected these things. They would come up to the campfire at night. Now, he wouldn't mess with them and he wouldn't make no sudden movements. But one time, one of the young ones come up, and he said when that young one come up, it was growling at him.
Mm-hmm.
The adults were, and it was wanting the matches in his pocket. And he took out the matches, and the thing grabbed it, put it in his mouth, and ate every one of them. And they all kind of walked off. But it was the sulfur. I mean, it was the sulfur that they were after.
Right.
They smelled it.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it makes sense.
Ashley, I have a question. And
Sure.
It's a good one. Now, this one's a good question.
Okay.
What is your opinion on how, when one of them do pass away? I think they take care of their own. And I think that they either maybe burn their own and ground them down. I don't know what they do. Put them in the water. I don't know what they do. But how do you think they dispose when one of their own passes away? Why have people not found the bones the way they're saying they're not?
Well, my thing to that is I tell everybody, how many bears have you found in the woods?
Right.
That's true.
How many panthers have you found in the woods? Number one, especially in lower Alabama, with the heat and the animals and everything else, a carcass ain't going to last very long. It's not.
Nope.
You know, a few days, you wouldn't know what it was out there. Now, I have read a lot of reports and people that know more than me, I think, that swear that they kind of bury them. So, and that would make sense too. And if you look at the primates and great apes, I think these things have a lot of characteristics of the great apes. And they'll kind of do some of the same stuff. So I don't think it's beyond imagination to think that they probably don't put them in some kind of shallow grave. And then between the animals and the heat and everything else, they're going to decompose really fast.
Well, you know, you say they got a lot in common with great apes, and they do.
Sure.
But
they're whistling and knocking on trees. And
yeah, but they have a lot in common with ancient humans too.
Right.
Because we have a lot in common with the great apes. I think, this is my personal opinion. And you know, I mean, they mine ain't no better than any other, but I think, and I agree with you, they do something with their dead, and I think they probably bury them or they eat them. One of the two.
Could be, yeah.
Chimpanzee.
I had a report where this old boy gut shot one with a 30-30 on the Red River, and two more came out and rushed it. It was stumbling around on the sandbar, and two other ones came out and rushed it. One hit it high and one hit it low, and they ripped that thing apart and ate it right there.
Well,
I
can see that. See that? Well, coyotes will do the same thing. Wolves will do the same thing.
Yeah. But I think they probably bury their own for the most part. You may have ones out there that are cannibalistic, because I don't think they're any different than you and I.
Right.
Really,
as far as
behaviors go, because, and I use this analogy quite a bit, but if you're tooling down the Amazon River down there and you run into undiscovered tribe, you know,
right,
and you walk up in the village and they take you in and they treat you to a feast and they treat you like a god and everything else. You say your goodbyes, you walk back out, you get in your little canoe and you paddle down about 5 or 10 more miles. You find another tribe, you get back out, and you are the meal.
That's right.
So,
I have heard
that is true. Well, look, I tell everybody, I think these things, my analogy, and that's a good analogy, is as I say, they're like a dog. There are some dogs that you can go up and pet that are nice, that likes the human interaction. And there are some dogs that will bite your ass and that don't care nothing for it. I think these things have different personalities and they all are going to act differently.
Absolutely. I mean, hell, we don't know if Grandpa Bigfoot was shot in the ass.
That's right.
He brought all of his kin up to not like humans.
Exactly.
You know? And that's why
they have learned too through the years. You know, I think when things were more even and we had primitive weapons.
Yeah.
You know, you hear stories, they come in and steal women and children out of the tribes and all this kind of stuff. But as man evolved, weapons evolved. They got smart. Man went more towards the urban areas. These things went further into the woods, and they are, in my opinion, the ultimate survivalists.
Yeah.
They know that humans are dangerous, and for the most part, they try to stay away.
That's right. That's right.
I don't blame them.
No, not at all.
No, not the way that people are firing at them and shooting them. And then you have that thing in the back of your head, like, even if I was going to fire upon one of these things, how many more would come out and get my goat if I did? I mean,
you don't want to do it. I mean, you don't want to do it unless you got a backup team and you don't want to do it. There's a lot of people that go missing in the Northwest all the time.
Yeah.
You know, that they don't know what happens to them, and they shoot at one of these things. No, you don't want to do that. That is a huge mistake. Not to mention, this is an 800 to a 1,200 pound animal from what I've seen. and your little 30-30 or 270 or 308, unless you put it in the head, ain't going to do a whole lot.
Right.
So you're just going to make it extremely mad.
So
Rax and William Robinson, hey, thank you for joining us. And Andrew and Nungs, I forgot to tell you hey too. I'm trying to say hello. I can see a little better for some reason. I'm not having to do this. Y'all make fun of me all the time.
Well, that's why I got mine on. I can't see anything anymore hardly.
Oh my goodness, my eyes. They have good days and bad days, and a lot of times it's a lot of bad days. So I'm enjoying the good day.
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely.
Anyway, so Ashley, people were asking questions. Text, did you highlight that or not? Did you?
I have been highlighting questions.
Okay, thank you so much.
So I figure we'll get to them about the last 10, 15 minutes of the show.
Okay, thank you. See, y'all, he's awesome. He's a good teacher. He's teaching me a lot, and I sure appreciate it. But let's see. So, Ashley, as far as creatures yourself, have you seen or laid eyes on them, or have you just took other people's stories and wrote your book?
No, both.
Both.
You know, gosh, back when I was a teenager getting ready to join the military, I was hunting on the place right there where a lot of my stories in the book happened. Didn't know anything about it. And what we call it down here, what the GCBRO call is a bull rush, to where I heard this thing on top of a hill popping its teeth. I thought it was a hog. Okay, I'm gonna be honest with you. So I got all I had was a shotgun. Couldn't afford a rifle at that time. That was a hot commodity, was a rifle. And I'm sitting on my butt, on a old fire lane with a little stream in front of me, and the full moon come up. Well, I was going to do a little outlaw, and I figured I'd sit here a little bit late. And that thing started popping its teeth, so I sure wasn't going nowhere. I was going to kill me a hog, back in those days. Man, you ate everything that that was something. Well, about that time, that thing started coming through the woods, and I've had several people explain it the same way. It sounded like a bulldozer coming through the woods.
Mm-hmm.
Pushing trees, popping trees, it scared me so bad. I was looking around for a tree to climb. I could not, there wasn't no tree to climb. So everything in my body said, just sit still, don't breathe.
Right.
And I did not breathe. And that thing got about 30 feet in front of me and stopped. And I didn't breathe. And I didn't know what it was, but after a while, I couldn't take it no more. I got up and hauled butt all the way back and got my old 79 Scout International. I remember it. Fully expecting when I turned them headlights on that there would be something standing in front of the headlights. There wasn't nothing. He probably laughed as he saw me haul butt. But that was my first experience. And then come to find out, I got stuck in that area a couple of weeks later, and the old man that pulled me out was talking about this huge creature on 2 feet that was terrorizing people over there and killing cows. And, he saw it one morning, and so it just kind of went from there.
They're having a heyday killing animals, aren't they?
Most of the killings where I was from was back in the 60s and 70s. After that, I haven't seen a whole lot. Since then, it seems like they've kind of maybe gotten smart enough to know maybe that ain't the thing to do. I don't know. But this guy here definitely has some cows killed.
Maybe what I said come out wrong. Hurting animals, because I heard about them breaking the cow's tails to assault the cow, if you know what I mean. And then, of course, they would hold a horse's head a certain way to assault the horse. I mean, you got to be pretty stout to hold a horse and a cow still to assault them in that manner.
I thought with the guy that had one of his cows had the whole udder ripped off of it.
Oh, my Jesus. See, that would break my heart.
The whole udder was ripped off.
That would break my heart.
Yeah, he had to shoot the cow to put it down.
Oh, gosh.
Yep. Sure. True story.
There's a lot of them, and that's what I'm telling you. Even if they don't kill them, there's a lot of them being hurt, like left hurt. And
Right.
so, but no, well, I don't know if you have watched the episode yet. Ashley, when Daryl Denton was on here, I'm still blown away. Daryl Denton told a story about they had bothered him and his horses for weeks. And he said he was fed up. And he said he opened that front door and was supposed to go out there and give them what for and holler at them. And they threw a dead headless goat at his front door.
Yeah.
He said
I
he
talked
found
with a woman that found her German Shepherd on top of the roof about 2 weeks later.
Yep.
y'all. Do you know how hard it is to pick up Ginger? And she's 2 years old. There's no way I could pick her up and throw her. I mean, it's hard enough picking her up and putting her on my bed. So who has the
Right.
strength to throw a German Shepherd up on top of a roof?
Yeah. Nobody that I know of.
I'm serious. Some of this stuff it makes you giggle because after a point, so much of hearing all this, you think you kind of have to be naive if you're not believing that humans can't do some of this stuff. Do you understand? Like the twisting of the trees and stuff like that. Now, a small one, yes, a human can do that, but not the large trees that's this big around and somebody just takes
No.
and starts twisting.
I've seen trees as big as my legs snapped off at 7 and 8 foot tall.
Yeah.
Just
I'll tell you what, the most impressive, and when I say impressive, unexplainable, because when I see stuff, that Bigfoot is the last thing that I jump to.
Sure, absolutely. Could be.
You right. have to do that. If you're researching, you've got to do that.
You got
to get everything else out of the way.
That's right.
But there we come across a tree down in the bottoms, and it was a live oak tree, and I couldn't get both hands around it. It was about this big around, and it had been twisted until it exploded, and it looked like one of them construction paper lanterns that we used to make when we was little bitty kids. That's what it looked like.
Oh wow!
It had been twisted till it just exploded and just laid over on another tree. It's just like this thing just walked by and just snapped.
Wow. Yeah.
There was no vehicle marks. There was no tool marks. There was no footprints. But I thought, well, okay, if we take everything physical, or animal, plant, mineral, and all that kind of stuff out of the possibility of doing this thing, and you look at, okay, maybe it was an F-0, what a lot of people call a dust devil, and they do get strong enough to do that. My mom had one go through the front yard, pick up a chicken, and pluck it. So they do strange stuff. But the thing about it is, this was, like I said, it was down in the bottom. It wasn't the biggest tree around, and it was surrounded by saplings bigger than that were rotten to the core. A stiff breeze could have blew them things over. So I don't think anything else could have done this. And it didn't happen long before we got there because the tree was still bleeding.
Wow.
And the leaves and the broken top of it was still alive, but the break was about 3 feet off the ground. So yeah, I mean, I'm with you, man. I mean, there's no, but you have to do that now.
Right.
I think, unfortunately, a lot of researchers, they get tunnel vision, and when they're out there and they're like, they'll hear something that's a little odd, or they haven't heard before, and they automatically think it's
no. You are absolutely right, and that's why I'll be honest with you. I don't follow a lot of those shows. I don't do a lot of podcasts, to be honest with you. I don't do any of that mess because of what you just said. I can hear stuff and say, well, that's an owl. And all of a sudden they're like, well, that's a Bigfoot. No, that's not a Bigfoot.
I had an old boy that was supposedly this big time researcher and supposed to be seasoned or whatever. And I went out in the field with him, and this old bull went to belly.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
He stood there and argued with me for 10 minutes. I said, he goes, that's them. I said, no, that's a bull. They better like that, you know. And no, that's a Bigfoot. No, it ain't. It's a damn bull.
Well, Tex, and I've
No.
also seen the opposite. You know, here's the
Oh,
thing.
yeah.
I've had some people that had an experience, a really good experience,
Yeah.
and because of that, everything is a Bigfoot.
Yeah.
I've got several folks like that started out, they had a really good experience and it was something that they can't explain, but now every single tree branch and every single limb snap is a Bigfoot
Well,
because they're paranoid and they're scared to death.
Yeah, absolutely. And in that sense, you can't blame them. They're traumatized, and
No.
you know, it's no different than people never going out in the woods again. You know,
Right.
Because, and I tell everybody, 9 times out of 10, if you've been camping in a state or national park,
Right.
these critters have been all over the place watching you, and they don't bother you. You know, and a lot of the encounters that are so-called aggressive encounters, the bluff charges and all that kind of stuff, I don't call those aggressive. That is honestly, that is just this critter's way of trying to make that encounter from becoming aggressive.
Well, I can tell you
Trying
what,
to
if
get you out
that
of there.
Joker wanted to get me that night, he could have.
Absolutely.
Easy. He
Absolutely.
knew where I was, but I can tell you this, at the same time, I was about ready to pee on myself.
I just said,
Well, if I would have been sitting down, I'd have probably done a lot worse than that. I'll be honest. And you tickled me a while ago, Ash, because I want to call you Ash because it's such a cute nickname. I love the name Ash. But anyways, I'm going to start calling you Ash. But anyways, when you said that while ago about you literally held your breath,
yes,
months and months and months ago, I said I literally, after I finally got backed out and hit the asphalt, I made a noise like I had been holding my breath for a real long time. Like that. I finally exhaled and I caught myself making a weird.
Your body naturally held its breath.
Yeah.
Because it knew your instincts kicked in. Yeah. These things can be very dangerous. And Tex, I agree that they're not something to play with. They're not something to fool around with. They're all different. They're different personalities.
Have you ever gifted or anything like that, Ash?
Ma'am?
Have you ever gifted or anything?
No, I have not. I have not. I have not even tried that because honestly, I don't want them coming near my place.
I don't think that's a real good idea because like any other animal, if they get used to feeding, if they get used to you feeding them and you don't,
I talked with a guy one time that did that and he stopped doing it because he got scared and dang thing completely tore his barn apart and was trying to come in the house.
Yeah.
I don't want no part of that. And I have an 8-year-old daughter. And where I live now is a pretty hot spot for them traveling back and forth. And I'm terrified. I ain't gonna say terrified, but when she's out in the yard playing, I make sure I'm out there kind of watching.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Wow.
Well,
oh gosh. Right.
I don't think
Virax.
As a general rule, I don't think they're out to snatch people up.
No.
I don't think they're out to snatch children up.
No.
But
thank you, Virax.
It's like the old saying goes, keep the honest man honest.
You can read horror stories of them snatching youngins and snatching women, and it's terrifying. I don't think they're beyond it, but I'm like you, they're not going to go out of their way to do it.
No. They'd rather not mess with
humans are dangerous, and
I feel like if the right opportunity come along, that they would snatch a human or an adult or a child. If the right opportunity come along,
they're curious. They're very curious creatures. Yes, they're curious. They like to watch. They like to observe. They're curious, as far as I can tell.
Well, it's just like we were saying a while ago. They're as different as you and I, and it's like Gary Spike says. He's one of my trackers in our group. There's good and bad ones, just like there are good and bad people.
Yes,
absolutely.
Yes, that's what I say.
I believe that wholeheartedly.
And they've snatched a many, if y'all will think about it, some of them have lived through it and some of them have not.
Yep.
We
Well-
just, of course, haven't proved all the ones that were snatched that didn't live through it.
Well, actually, we've got quite a few questions over here.
Well, let's do it. Yeah, I can't read it, so you tell me.
Well, I'll read. It's me reading you a bedtime story. Here we go.
All right.
What is Riley Ron Ivy Forrest? What is the scariest encounter you've ever had?
Okay. The scariest encounter I had was probably, I'll tell you when it was. It was 2006, November is whenever Trump got elected the first time. I can tell you, because I remember I was bow hunting. Okay, up tall in a tree. It was right at dark. I didn't even have a flashlight on me, didn't have a gun, didn't have a knife. I was just bow hunting.
Right.
And right at dark, I heard some coyotes. How these things seem to follow the coyotes. I don't understand that, but these coyotes always seem to be pretty close.
I've got a, and I was talking to Selena about this very thing the other day.
Yes, the coyotes are always right there. I don't know if they work together or they just feed off of what these things kill. I don't know.
I think you just hit the nail on the head. I think that's what they do. They'll use the coyotes. I don't think they train them, but they'll follow these coyotes, and whatever the coyotes kill, if they're hungry, they'll go take it away from them.
Well, I think you're right, and so I heard the coyotes, and I thought I heard something that didn't sound like a coyote, but it's getting dark. I can't see. I'm climbing down the tree. I get about halfway down, and this thing sounds off, and I'm telling you, it was just like seeing one at 10 feet away. Right. It sounded like a cross between an 800-pound man and a fire truck.
A fire truck. I've never heard it described as a fire truck, but I've heard the whistle described like a train. That's how loud it was.
This thing vibrated off my chest. It was 200 yards away, vibrated off my chest. It was so loud, stunned me. I went back up the tree, and I remember praying. I was like, you know what, Lord, I've always wanted to see this thing to know for sure, but not tonight, not right now. I ain't got a gun. I ain't got a knife. Please, Lord, don't let it come under me right now. And after a few minutes, the coyotes were going nuts. At first, you could hear a pin drop for about 5 minutes. I mean, nothing stirred. You knew that was the boss of the woods, buddy.
Right.
And the coyotes started acting up and going nuts from all directions. And then I eased my butt down and ran out of that place. But you want to talk about a scared white boy running out of them woods with no flashlight, knowing that thing was about 200 yards away. Yeah, it was. And I'm older, so I can't see as good as I used to, you know. So that was one of the scariest moments.
Hey, Ken.
So here's another question. Riley Ron, again, he's very active. Have you heard of the stories of the Alabama white chain or something like that? I think it's the Alabama white thing is what it is. And is that some kind of Bigfoot creature?
I have never heard that. I don't know.
Yeah.
I've heard people talk about it. But I think it's a Bigfoot-like creature, but I'm not for sure.
We have a guest that will be coming on talking about seeing that. So just hang on and we'll have.
There we go.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, that's beyond me. I don't know.
Verax says, in your research across Lower Alabama, have you noticed any unique behaviors or patterns in Bigfoot activity that seem to be specific to the Gulf Coast region? That's a great question.
Oh, boy, that is a good question. You know, the only thing I can say is, number one, they seem to travel the same paths. They seem to like the same areas, the same haunts. And when I've heard a wood knock, it's always been when there's somebody in the woods that they've kind of encountered, and it's almost like they're warning other people that, hey, there's a hunter over here in the woods.
Yeah.
And other than that, I can't say there's a whole lot of difference.
So I'm going to go to Flat Rock. Good buddy of mine.
Okay.
Can't wait to see him in a couple of weeks.
Me
I
too.
believe he says, I believe these critters travel down Murder Creek,
Uh-huh.
Sapulga River,
Oh yeah. Mhm.
Pigeon, and Burnt Corn Creek in this country, in
Absolutely.
this county. He's right up there with you.
Yeah.
So, and he says, are you still getting reports around Evergreen and the surrounding towns?
Yes. Matter of fact, two of the stories I've mentioned tonight there are not in the book. The one about my buddy hunting up on my place, and the guy from North Carolina. But now, of course, that was years ago. But now, yes, I'm still getting some reports. Sapulga River is, man, that's a huge old river. Burnt Corn Creek is all in my book. There's clusters everywhere on that thing. Back in the day, that was the main travel way from Alabama down to Pensacola. Everything used Burnt Corn Creek to get down to Pensacola, Florida.
Just like
So
highways.
yes, yes. That's a good question. Murder Creek, I've gotten one report on Murder Creek from a doctor over in Bruton, Alabama, that had some goats missing and found some huge footprints in the mud that contacted me. So yeah, and that was just last year. So absolutely, good
There
question.
you go. Random Explorer says, I will be camping somewhere on the backwater of Coon Gulf. I wonder what might be hiding on all that land and trust land.
Where?
The backwater of Coon Gulf.
I'm not sure where that is exactly. I've never heard of Coon Gulf. I know Blackwater. If it's over there near Blackwater and all that stuff, there's tons of reports over that way. So anywhere down there in South Alabama, the Panhandle to Florida, you're gonna find reports.
Oh
There ain't
yeah,
no doubt.
and they're just growing. I mean, people, and see, if you know these people like I do, you know that they would not want anyone thinking that they have lost their ever loving mind because they're
Right.
trying to hold a certain reputation.
So
You know what I
listen,
mean?
I
These
do
people don't want to
anesthesia.
look like idiots. They have reputations and careers, and they don't want to look like they've lost their mind. So they're having a hard time when they call me and say, "Don't tell anybody my name, please."
Yep.
I have a high standing in the community, and I don't want to lose that reputation. And so, see, y'all, I'm just telling you, they're growing. These people are seeing these things right and left, and they are a lot of them in Alabama, and mine was, and that was. Whew, go back and watch my story.
I do anesthesia. I mean, I rely on my reputation. So
Right.
Yes.
I'm crazy. So, but yeah.
I came out of the proverbial Bigfoot closet several years ago, and my credibility was absolutely smashed. So I
Yep.
understand what people talk about.
Yes.
William Robinson says, Ashley, I think
Yes.
there are exceptions. My sighting, and I'm going to agree with this. My sighting was by itself. I suspect it was traveling, but not living up there. That's very possible. Don't get us wrong, folks. There are cases of rogues that they'll challenge them. I think it's much like
Sure.
anything else. They challenge the big alpha male. They lose. They get their butt kicked, and they're kicked out of the clan, and they got to go find and make their own.
Right.
I don't think it's a widespread thing, but and I know what they're alluding to. They're alluding to what we were talking about earlier. Right. When they're there's always more than one. Well, no, it's not always.
Well, yeah, that's right. Here's my point.
It's better to err on the side of caution.
Yes. Can you get a rogue one, and that's the only one in there? I'm sure. Now, I still would guarantee there's another one at least several hundred yards away. But can you? Is it impossible? No. But you better, like you said, err on the side of caution and pretend, or at least act like there's more than one in the area, and be smart.
Use caution, yes.
So Riley again asked, what's your opinion, Ashley, on Nathan Kwa, or AKA Sasquatch. Is it? You think it's a flesh and blood creature, or do you think there's something more to it, supernatural?
All right, look, there's different theories on this, and I'm going to be honest, and this is just Ashley, okay?
There you go.
Have I had some supernatural stuff? It seems to happen. Yes. I've had my batteries out of my cameras just completely die for no reason. I've seen equipment fail when we're in an area. Like one time we were hog hunting at night, and all my dog collars completely went out at the same time in an area. I mean, the dogs wouldn't even go off the road. They were scared to death with their tails between their legs.
Yep.
I've seen some weird stuff that I can't explain.
Right.
But in my brain, there's nothing supernatural about them. You know, I just think they're survivalists, and they're very slick, and they know humans, and they stay away, and that causes a lot of lore and beliefs out there that there's something else. I can't say that they're not supernatural. I cannot, but I just don't understand that enough to wrap my brain around it.
Well,
I don't either, but I still think that there's some strange things that happen when they're near.
Well,
yes, I mean, I've seen it. I can't explain it, but I've seen that. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I don't think any researcher worth their salt can say that they haven't had these unexplainable things happen.
Right.
And here's my take on it. I'm on board with you, Ashley. I think they're flesh and blood, but I don't think that's the only thing we got going out there. I think we have a lot of different phenomenon, and for some reason, beings, I don't know what to call them. Because we of course, I don't want to open the whole orb box because that's a whole different conversation. But
I've seen the orbs with these things.
Me too. But I think that is a separate phenomenon from Bigfoot. But I think for some reason it's attracted to them, or Bigfoot's attracted to that type of energy. I don't know what it is, but I don't think orbs are Bigfoot running around.
Yeah, no.
So there's my take on it.
But I have seen orbs in areas that had a Bigfoot sighting.
Absolutely.
And I don't understand it. Again, I don't understand it. I'm not an expert on that, but in my brain, these things are just they're flesh and blood, and there's just a lot that we don't know right now.
Right.
Yep.
So we're still undecided on that. It sounds like me and Ash is about the same on our. In other words, we want to think they're flesh and blood, but strange things are happening around them, such as orbs and stuff, right before they appear or right after. So,
I'm open to any explanation.
Sure.
Okay.
Oh,
because I can't. If somebody had this experience and saw an orb turn into a Bigfoot, I'm not going to call them a liar.
Right.
Just because I haven't seen it doesn't mean it didn't happen.
Right.
I've heard
I just haven't seen any evidence of it yet.
I've heard two men said that it went from a orange square. That's why I love the Flash of Beauty. I just think that show's really cool. They were on their way to or from work in a van, and they come around a curve and said it started out as a Bigfoot, and I mean a huge Bigfoot that was like tall as this big pole, and it started shrinking until it shrunk into a orange square, and flew real quickly away. And they said, we're two men seen that. And they couldn't wrap their head around what they were seeing. So they went to an artist, an artist, and had the artist, go from A to Z, start out how big it was, how small it shrunk to. And I was fascinated by this documentary, but it was a Flash of Beauty, the very first one. And
I'll be honest with you, until we get a body on the ground
that we're allowed to take a peek at.
Until we have a flesh and blood body on the ground, that we're never going to know. There's going to be speculation after speculation. So
So, Flat Rock. Somebody asked me a question. I'm going to do that last. Flat Rock. Do you still go out? Do you still go out looking for them?
You know, I don't go out of my way to look for them. But with my knowledge and everything that's happened, I'm always alert. And I guess you could say kind of looking for them when I'm hunting and doing other stuff. Now, do I purposely go out in the woods at night and try to find them? I hadn't done that in a while, you know, mostly just because I work and I'm lazy and, you know, I know they're there.
Right.
But I'm always aware when I go in the woods, I pick up on stuff a lot of other people probably wouldn't or wouldn't notice when they're hunting. Yeah, I'm looking at stuff that they wouldn't look at. So kind of, I guess.
Okay. Well, there you go. Sassy Debbie asked me a question. She says, Tex, what was your first reaction when you first saw one? Okay, now I gotta tell y'all something. A Bigfoot wasn't the first thing I saw. Okay. The first thing I saw, and I don't know what Ashley's opinion is on this, but he'll have to come back and maybe we can discuss it. But the first thing I saw was a Dogman. Okay?
Oh,
And so, and that was when I was 16. Now, years and years and years later, about 9, 10 years ago, is when I saw my first Bigfoot. And it was about 50 yards away. It was broad daylight, 8:30 in the morning. Stood up in the middle of a wheat field and took off running. I saw it from the waist up until it hit the fire break, and I saw it head to toe. And it run into the bottoms. My exact reaction was, I'll be damned, there goes one right there. That was my reaction.
you know, my reaction was a lot like a lot of people. Did I just really see that? And then you second guess yourself over and over. Even to this day,
Absolutely.
I second guess myself sometimes that I really see what I saw because it just lasted a few seconds as it walked on the edge of a field at daylight. Its chest looked like it was a Volkswagen turned upside down on two legs. It was very broad. As for a dog man, I don't understand those, but I have a very reliable witness in the same area where these Bigfoot sightings happen. I mean, I grew up with this girl. She can skin a deer quicker than I can. She is one of the most countryest outdoor girls. She walked every night at her house, and she had one cross the road. I argued with her saying that it had to have been a Bigfoot.
Right.
She drew me a picture. That damn thing looked like a werewolf. And I told her, I said, you saw a dog man. And she'd never even heard of a dog man before.
Right.
And this thing was taller than a street sign because it walked past the street sign and it was humped over and taller than a street sign.
Right.
Humped over is still taller.
Yeah. So what in the world was that? You know, and that's another subject I have no expertise on. But we have found big claw marks on trees where these sightings have that I just assumed was a Bigfoot, but now I'm not so sure.
Right.
Well, Frankie,
Ashley, I'm going to be the first. I'm going to be the first to thank you for coming on, and
wow.
I hope that you'll come back.
Yes, I do. I want you to come back.
I enjoyed this. This was a lot of fun.
Everybody. Let's see, Ashley, if you get a chance, are you going to write another book about this area? That's what Flat Rock said.
I'm not sure. I've got a lot of different stories. I could, but I'm going to be honest with you. I've had so much bad experience writing this book when it comes to scam people and people trying to get money out of you and stuff like that. I really don't know. I have thought about it. I've had a few requests doing it, but we'll just have to wait and see.
There you go.
So maybe, or maybe not.
Maybe. And I told y'all several of the stories on this podcast that are not in the book. So, and you know, I hope everybody enjoys it, but go out and get the book, Lower Alabama Bigfoot, and let me know what you think. You know, I'm on Facebook. Easy to find, and I'd love to hear, you know, some of the stories or what you think of the book. It's kind of personal to me.
Okay,
You know,
y'all heard him. Lower Alabama. Say it again.
Bigfoot.
Oh, yes.
Lower Alabama Bigfoot, no longer a myth. It's on Amazon, and you know, and I'm really not making any money on it. It's not for that, but I get more joy out of just what people think of it.
Yeah.
And, I tried to make it personal. I lost my first wife with cancer. I talk about that in the book. I talk
I'm
about the
sorry.
counties that we live in. We're home To Kill a Mockingbird. The Harper Lee, who wrote the book, I knew her. And so I just got a friend request from Flat Rock. So Flat Rock, I'm going to accept that request here in just a
Hey,
minute.
you
There
accept
you
that
go.
request, Ashley, because that's one. He's a good feller. He's a good feller. But then again, I'm very partial for the people in chat because I just love everybody in chat. They're
Well,
all pretty.
I've known Flat Rock for a few years now, and I got to tell you, I love me some Flat Rock. He's a great guy.
Well, the only Flat
do.
Rock I ever knew in my life was one of the greatest guys I ever knew
Yep.
from back home. So I'm looking forward to that. And yeah, just let me know what you think of the book. And hopefully, like I said, it's more than just Bigfoot in there, but it's, I try to paint a picture and tell some of these stories from my point of view and from the other folks, and the stories that they gave me. And I just really did it so everybody could just enjoy, just reading a good book and make up your own mind on what you believe. So,
speaking of making up your own mind, Varex has last question, and we'll let you go. Ashley, with your medical background, have you ever applied that lens to analyze tracks or reported vocalizations or anything that might offer clues about their physical makeup or intelligence? Great question.
Well, that is a good question. I mean, the only thing I can tell you is kind of what I've already said. I try to make sense out of everything. When I see something, number one, I try to disclaim it, just like you do. I try to find if I can find another explanation on what was going on, I throw it out. Okay. The other thing is yes, I'll research great apes and what great apes do and their calling, and I try to make correlations with that. So the best that I can. I mean, I do anesthesia, I'm not an expert in that kind of stuff, I guess you could say.
Right.
Well, and I just saw something pop up about somebody wanting to meet me in Escambia County from the Wynn clan. I don't
He said he was Flat Rock's cousin. It was Wynn clan Ken. And I said hello to you a while ago, Ken. He said he was Flat Rock's cousin. And he asked about Escambia County. Something about Escambia County.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, I'm very familiar with
Greg
Escambia
Ogles
County
is
too.
here. Everybody say hey to Greg Ogles. Thank you for joining us, Greg. We're fixing to end this, but man, it's been a good show. So go back and watch. So Tex, I really enjoyed tonight. And I enjoy all my guests. I really do. I learned so much. And so, but Ash, if you want to come back, all you got to do is let me know. I told everybody I don't like to call and say, when you come back, are you coming back? You want to come back for part 2? I know it bugs people. So you let me know if you've got an opening to come back. If you want to.
I'd be happy to come back anytime, you guys. You just, whenever you guys want me, just let me know.
Appreciate it, brother.
So you just let us
Tex,
know.
I hate I'm not going to see you in Alabama, man. I hate I'm up here in northern Minnesota, but I am catching crappie and pike and walleye like there's no forgiveness.
Well, I'm glad you're having fun, and thank you
I
so much.
may have to come up there, crash your party, because that sounds like a dream come true, brother.
Let me tell you something. Northern Minnesota is a great place, and I can tell you this: they've got Bigfoot stories up here too. There's tons of Indian reservations up here, and you would be surprised at the people I've had come up to me that have found huge footprints and stories. So yeah, and if he could be anywhere, he could be up here. It's nothing but woods and lakes.
Yep.
Well, again, Ashley, thank you so much. It's great meeting you, brother. We'll stay in touch. Okay.
David Blalick. Hey, I just seen your name, Greg and Val and Winclan Ken and Debbie and Sassy. It's Debbie Sassy.
Wind Clan, he's got to be a Creek Indian if he's with the Wind Clan.
There you go.
And that's actually one of the next books I'm looking at writing is something with that. But anyhow,
Nice.
but anyway,
Well,
listen, guys, I appreciate it. I enjoyed the stew out of this, and
I did too.
God bless everybody. And like I said, I'm easy to find. Look me up. And Celine, you know how to get a hold of me. Text. I'd love to see you in Alabama sometime. And let's
we
get
can
together.
make that happen.
We can go do some camping on some of these places, man, and
There
shoot
you
a
go.
video of it. I'm all about it.
There you go.
Well,
I'm
thank
in.
you
brother.
so much, Ashley Mcphaul, everybody. And don't forget to check out his book. One more time, give the name of your book.
Lower Alabama Bigfoot, no longer a myth. Let me know what you think about it, and thank y'all.
And
Thank
you
you
can find
so
it on
much.
Amazon.
Good night,
Thank you,
everybody.
everybody.
Hey, Blackie.
Thank you again, Ashley. Y'all, hey, neither one of y'all run off. Okay, she's the world's worst about just showing. She just bails.
She was trying to be nice and tell you that she needs to get to the other room.
All right, we'll run off then. We'll see y'all later. Good night, everybody.
Love
Good night.
everybody.
Howdy, folks. Tex here. Welcome to Southern Belle Bigfoot. Let me introduce